If you'd like to learn how to respawn your character with items that they've picked up when they die, keep watching and I'll show you exactly how to do it. Welcome to Roblox Snippets. Let's start by creating a part in the workspace, and we'll call this our lava part. And we're going to use this to kill our players. So we'll make it look a bit like lava. So change it to a red colour, and we'll change it to up the top. We'll get cracked lava there, and we'll change its size to say, I don't know, 5 by 0.5 by 5, just to make a tile. And the last thing we want to do is anchor it. Alright, we'll add a script to this and call this our lava script. And we'll add our code in here. So let's create a variable up the top here for the lava, and it will be script.parent. And just below this, we'll say lava.touched. So when the player touches the lava, we're going to connect a function to this and pass in a parameter of hit. So this represents which part of the character, their foot or their leg, etc., has touched the lava. And from that information, we can determine then that we have a character. So we can simply say hit.parent will represent the character. And now we want the humanoid so we can do damage to them. So local humanoid equals character, and we will find first child humanoid. And we'll just put in a simple conditional statement that if it is a humanoid, then we're going to set humanoid's health equal to 0, which will result in them being dead. Alright, so once you have that, let's close this, and we won't test it just yet because I'd like you to come up, and we're going to get a sword as an item that we will pick up. So click on Home and then Toolbox, and over in the Marketplace, make sure in the drop down you have Models, and up the top type in Sword. Okay, and when you've got a selection of swords here, try to pick one that does not have a script in it. Okay, now if it does have a script, I'll just show you what to do. Let's say I just pick this first one here. Firstly, I want to put it into the workspace, so I'll click on it, and it says it has 2 scripts in it. Alright, it says to review these, so we're going to do that. So click on OK, and click on No because we just want it in the workspace. Otherwise it would put it in our backpack. And we've got a classic sword here, and you can see these tools show that it is a tool and it can be picked up. So what we want to do is expand this, and we really don't want anything inside here such as the thumbnail camera. We can delete that. And the sword script, you don't even have to open it, just delete it. The mouse icon, delete that. Okay, and inside the handle you can take out the sounds. Okay, and we should have nothing left in there now that is a script. Alright, so we've got rid of anything in there that could do us some damage. Okay, and we are good to go in here. We can even delete this touch. Well, we'll leave that there. And we'll move our sword just over to the sort of just off the lava because we want the player to pick this up first before they die. Okay, so we've got these 2 items. One, we can pick this up and we will die here. So let's click on File and Save, and we will play. Right, so the first thing I would like you to do is run over and pick up the sword. Alright, and as you can see, I have the sword. I can put it away and I can take it out. However, when I run over here and die, you'll notice that I respawn, the sword is gone, and I can't pick it up again, and it hasn't given it back to me. And that's what this video is about, is teaching you how to give your characters or players back the items that they have picked up. So let's go ahead and stop now. And we will now create a script, or a couple of scripts, that will let us give these items back to the players. I'd like you to come down to the server script service and then click on the plus, and we're going to add a script, and we'll call this our main script, and we'll get rid of our hello world. Now it's important to notice that, or know that when you run a game in Roblox, your character or your player is represented as those two things. Over here in the Explorer window, you'll see players, all right, and your name will appear there when you run. And up here in the workspace, you'll see your name here as well will come up, and that is your character. Now these two items, player and character, handle different things. So in this main script, we're going to try to show you that and how and why things work. So this script, we'll start off by saying game.players.player added, and then we put a colon. We want to connect a function when a player is added and pass that player into the game. And I'll just get rid of these windows here. So this happens for each player that enters our game, and once they have done that, they will appear over in that players section here. Okay. Their character, however, will then be loaded. So when that happens, we want to deal with that, and we're going to create a function up above here rather than doing it in here. So just above here, create a function by typing function, local function, and character added, and we'll pass in the character and hit enter. So when the player has loaded in, what we're going to do is we're going to wait for the player's character appearance to be loaded, and we do that by saying player.character appearance loaded pops up here, so you can hit that, and when that happens, we're going to connect. And instead of writing function in here, we're actually going to put this function in up here. So character added. Okay, so no parentheses at the end. And that will then run this up the top. Now, before we worry about this up here, once our player has come in, because we want to keep track of their items, we need a way or a variable to do that. And we're going to use a player variables folder. So you can type a comment here. So this folder will hold or any player variables that we don't want the player to see. So player vars will equal instance.new, and it will be a folder, and we're going to parent it, outside, put a comma and parent it to each player. So each player will get this folder added to them, and we'll give it a name, so player vars.name, and we'll just call it player vars in inverted commas. So player vars. Sorry, can't type today. Okay, and that will create that folder for each player. Now in this, we will create a variable called player has sword, and it will be instance.new, and it's a true or false, so it'll be a Boolean value, and we will parent that now to our player vars folder. Sorry, player vars. That is correct, like that, sorry. Alright, so now this variable will be added inside the folder, and if you're finding this confusing, we'll run the game and I'll show you exactly how that runs shortly. So player has sword, and we'll give it a name, and we can simply call this has sword. And now we need to tell it whether the player does or does not have one. So player has sword.value, and in this case will be false because they don't yet have a sword. Alright. Now I'd like just to add a print statement down the bottom here, and we're going to say player loaded, and put an equal sign, and just after this put a comma, and we'll type player.name, just to show you how these things run in order. All right. Now I'll get rid of this down the bottom here. We'll come back up to our function up here. Now this will run, but it does not interfere with this, and that is what's known as yielded or yielding. So some things, if they yield, then it will force the script or the program to wait until this is finished before it does this. But this doesn't do that, and you'll see that how that works when we look at the print statements here. So up here we'll say print and character loaded, and we'll say equals, and we'll put in here character.name. Alright, now right below this, because we are now going to take over Roblox's responsibility of what happens when you would have noticed in the demo at the beginning that when I died, I did respawn, but it just respawned my character. It didn't do anything special, and that's why we're going to take over that by binding that function in here to our character. And we do that by getting our character's humanoid first. So a local humanoid equals character, and we're going to wait for child, because remember that the character is still loading in at this stage, until the humanoid has appeared. And once we have that, we can say humanoid dot died, and we'll put a colon, connect, okay, a function, and just outside drop down like this, and we can now put our code in here. What do we want to happen when the character dies? So the first thing that we want to do is get the player that the character is connected to. So we can say local player equals game.players, and find first child the character.name. And that will make sure that when this humanoid dies, that we get the right player that it's connected to. Now, once we get that player, remember down here, we've created this in the players, we want to get a hold of this folder that they have. So type in here, pvars, and we'll equal player. So we made it just player, like this. And we want to wait for child, player vars, and that will get a hold of our folder. And then inside that folder we want to look at this here. Okay, so we want to get the sword variable, so we'll say local player has sword, and we can simply put in player vars dot and type in has sword, and that should give us access to that variable to check what this says. Now when we die, there is a cleaning up process that happens, and if you try to call code sometimes on a character that has died and it hasn't been cleaned up yet, it can cause weird errors or just simply not work. So the first thing that we need to do is to check that or set the player dot character, okay, so capital C, equals nil. And we should just put here player, sorry. That's the variable we're using here. So what this effectively does is ensure that any code or the character connected to this player is completely wiped and becomes nothing. And so after our character is set to nil and we don't have one anymore, we want to load a new one. So player and then a colon, and now we'll say load character with just a set of brackets at the end, which is effectively like what we did down here with the character appearance loaded, only we're just loading the character in. Now next, what we want to do is to check whether the player has a sword or not. So we're going to put a conditional statement in here. If player has sword.value, so that means that they have a sword, then we'll put a comment in here, player has sword. Then we're going to give them a sword. So at the moment we don't have any way to do that. So if we come back to our workspace, and I'll just bring up my Explorer and Properties windows, we have this classic sword here. So we're going to, the player will pick this one up in the workspace, and we'll write code for that shortly. However, just right click on this one here and copy it, and then come down to server storage, and then right click and paste into. So we've got a copy of it in server storage. Okay, let's come back to our main script now, and we'll get access to the server storage service and then the sword at the very top of the script. So up here we'll say local ss for server storage equals game get service, server storage, and then just below this we can say local sword equals server storage and then a colon, and we will wait for child, because just remember, you might have you know, a lot of items in here, so you need to make sure you wait until everything is loaded when you're accessing folders or services like this. Alright, so now we've got a sword up here that we can make a copy of. Down here in our code where we're giving the player a sword, just drop down a line, and we're going to say local new sword will equal sword and then a colon, and we will clone it. So it'll make a copy of the one in server storage, and drop down a line there, and then we'll say new sword dot parent will equal the player dot backpack. We've got everything in place now, except for the fact that we haven't actually changed the value down here of has sword. So in our workspace where we have this sword, let's find this up in the workspace here, and we'll add a script to that. So script, and call this our sword script, and we can get rid of this in here. So this its only job here is to change that value. So we'll say up the top here local sword equals script.parent dot handle. Okay, so we need to say that because this is a tool, so it's an invisible item, and the handle is the thing that you see or that the player touches. Alright, so that's why we do that. And sword dot touched, and then we can connect a function to this, pass in hit as a parameter, so what is it that's hitting as part of the character, like its leg or arm, and we can use that information to find out the player. So local player equals game.players and get player from character, and we're going to pass in hit.parent. Right, and I'll just get rid of this here so you can see. So hit.parent effectively is the character's arm or leg, and its parent is the character, so we're then using the character to find out which player it is. Just hopefully that makes sense for you. And we'll just put in a simple conditional statement here to say if it is a player, then we want to get their player vars folder. So will be player and wait for child, player vars. So remember, it must, this name here must match what you put over here called your folder, or it won't work. And inside that folder, player has sword will equal pvars dot has sword. Once again, make sure that the capitalization is exactly the same as you have in your main script, or it won't work. And then we want to change this value. So player has sword dot value will now equal true, because they've just picked it up. And when we do that, we no longer need this script, so we can get rid of this. So script destroy, and that will do the job for changing the value. And we can change, close this, and now that's enough for us to test, and I'm going to show you a couple of things when we're testing. So I'll just open up these here, and let's play. Alright, so I'm all loaded in. So the first thing we want to do is run over and pick up our sword. So if you have a look up here in players, you'll now see that we have under here our backpack with nothing in it. And if we expand our workspace and look at our character, you'll see that the classic sword appears inside of a character. Now if I click on this, it gets removed from our character in the workspace and placed inside of our backpack here. Alright, so this is an example of how things switch between the character and the player. Alright, now that we can see that, if you come into player vars and click on the variable, you'll see that this is checked regardless of whether we now equip or unequip the sword. Our player has now picked up and has a sword. So let's now kill our character, run over there, and you should respawn and have the sword back in here. So this time let's equip the sword and run over and see if it continues to work. It does, and then let's run over again with it in our backpack now. And everything seems to be working just fine. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed that video, and I look forward to seeing you in future videos. If you found this video useful, subscribe now. For more information about my online courses, go to mrbrendanross.com.